So Matt, thanks for joining us, obviously joining us after a debut year for Bar City Women. For those that don't really know, wanted to know more about how your role and involvement came about in the club, really, to start off with.
So the advert came up for a women's coach, and a couple of people I'd coached previously sort of said, "You're the man for the job, put your name forward," and pushed me towards it. And I went for it, obviously being a supporter of the club as well already. It was a big opportunity for me to step up into a bigger role in management and see where it could go. And lucky for me, the club took me on in an interview and I came along, and the rest was history. I think we both agreed with where we wanted to go with the club, and we sort of aligned up and we went with it.
Sort of cast your mind back, I guess 12 months has probably been a very hectic year for yourself on and off the pitch. But what were the sort of early challenges like when you first came through the door? Obviously everything was very new, it was being set up. What were those first few weeks and months like for you?
They were exciting, and obviously it was like a blank canvas, but the biggest challenge was the fact we didn't have a team. So we had to do the recruitment day, bring the players in. We had to make quick decisions on players. Are they going to be good enough? Are they, is it the sort of right stage for them? And so it was hard, and it was hard in that aspect. And the other thing was, as a team, some of these teams have been playing together for years. They've got the chemistry and the sort of relationships there. We didn't have that straight off. We had to build that and develop that. That was probably the biggest challenge that we started with.
In terms of that sort of first year, you look back on it now, had some time to reflect with the season finishing. How pleased are you with how it's gone overall? A strong finish. How pleased are you with that first year as a whole?
Oh, majorly pleased. I think we couldn't have done better considering what we were up against. But when we had support of our sponsor Novia and other sort of the club backing us and really sort of putting money towards the team and really helping us develop and giving us the level platform with the men's team, it really was a big sort of help and support towards us. And I think it gave us that chance to keep developing as the season went on. That's clear to see by results. And yeah, a second place finish was huge for us, and it was well deserved, I think.
You speak about sort of the wider club there. You said yourself there that you're a supporter of the club. How exciting has it been for you to come in and take charge of something here?
Yeah, it's been exciting. It's been obviously, the biggest thing for me is the little bit of pressure that comes with it. You've got to understand that when you support a club, it's more than just going out and doing a job. Suddenly it becomes a little bit more personal, and so there's been a little bit of pressure, but the excitement's there, and I do feel like the club's welcomed me in and welcomed the rest of the team in, and it's been a massive sort of opportunity for me to sort of solidify myself in the club.
You spoke there about being a supporter of the club and now coming in and being the manager of the women's team. What is some of your early memories of being down at Twerton and some of your heroes that you had down here?
I remember coming down and watching the likes of Chris Holland and Lewis Hogg and Scott Partridge, and that was the early memories I've got of the club, and sort of built a bit of a love for the team through those times. And as life comes around, sort of ended up getting a bit busy with work and unfortunately not able to come down as much until a couple of years ago, sort of made it so my work could fit around it a bit more, and came down and saw the likes of Ryan Brunt and Adam Mann, and again saw the team sort of flourish. I mean, I remember us sort of getting promotion to the Conference National a few years ago, and that was massive, and it was a shame we couldn't hold it there. But yeah, that was sort of like the earliest memories for me of supporting the club. And now it's kind of weird being stood in the dugout and being at the same ground. It's sort of a bit surreal, but I do enjoy it.
And now I suppose as well, you said there about your own heroes, and we've spoken about the crowds, we've spoken about the fans being in. Your team is now providing those inspirations for the younger generation who, could be going on to be involved in the club when they grow up as well. Oh,
definitely. You get the young girls that come out here and they're mascots, and they're constantly stood by the dugout going, can we get Tara to come sign an autograph, or can Emily come over and sign my boots? And so it's really nice to see that the young girls are taking a shine to our players, just the way I took a shine to some of the players in the past of the club.
And a word on your players as well. As you said there, a lot of them won't have known each other when they came through the door. A massive overturn, a whole new team, basically. How pleased are you with the way that they managed to gel and really come together under you?
Yeah, I think we had some big personalities in different ways. And there was one point early in the season where I thought, this could go either way. They're either going to all love each other or all hate each other. And they didn't. They all sort of bonded together. They've got strong relationships. The fact that, they're meeting up out of season as well. They're still getting on well. We went to the FA Cup final together to watch that. They did gel really well, but the biggest thing for me from all of the players was they kind of motivated each other and sort of held each other accountable. So the commitment levels of each other was massive. We had players coming back off holiday to play matches. We had all sorts of things like that. That's because of the relationship they built with each other. I was very impressed at how they'd done that so quickly. With
the season finished now, obviously you've had your end of season awards. You look back on the campaign as a whole. What are some moments that really stand out to you, and how do you view the way that your players have developed throughout the year as well?
I think one of the highlights that I've sort of come up with quite early on was the fact that when we did our recruitment day originally, a lot of players were still feeling the effects from the COVID pandemic, where they hadn't necessarily played in a few years. And that was quite clear to see. So from that point to the end of the season, where some of the stuff they were doing on the pitch, passing the balls, these sort of long diagonals and everything sort of technical wise was starting to come together a bit more. So the development of the whole squad over the course of the season was massive. As it was with our end of seasons awards, we did obviously like most improved, we did managers player, we had certain players that showcased themselves. We had players like Esme, who started 16, first adult team, started the season, was potentially a little bit shy and wasn't used to the senior game. By the end of the season, she was one of the strongest players I think we had, playing a lot of minutes. Same with Tania. She started off the season sort of fitness-wise, wasn't entirely there, but by the end was playing 90-minute games and really sort of enforcing the high press, which we like to do in games. So yeah, I think there's some big highlights there, but then I'm hoping to sort of see more next season.
I suppose that's one of the things that must excite you when you see a team almost flourish towards the end. It must be very exciting for you to think, right, we can take this to the next level next season as well.
Yeah, I think when you look at the development from start to finish this year and you see where we started to where we finished, I'm more excited to look at it now and go, our starting point now is quite high. So imagine where we're going to push that by the end of next year. It's really interesting. Obviously, I'm UEFA B qualified, my assistant's UEFA B qualified. So the level with training is decent as well. So yeah, we're hoping we can get the best out of the players next year and help them reach not just the club's milestones, but our own milestones as well.
You were saying there about your style of play and the ethos that you bring to the club. What performances really this season typified that?
I think the main one for me was Bishop's Lydiard at home. We won the game 3-1. We came out the blocks a little bit slow, if I'm honest. It wasn't always our best performance in the first early minutes, but the team's mentality showcased how good we were and sort of really showcased our style of play, because they started to sort of keep going, get into the game to the point that by half time, I think we'd kind of solidified ourselves so strongly in the game that we didn't really give the opposition a chance that day. And second half, we just carried on going. We came out and carried on doing what we did. And yeah, for me, that was probably the biggest performance of the season for us and how we played. Only other one that I could really sort of come to mind was maybe Ilminster Town away. We got beat at home that day, the time before, sorry. And we went there needing at least a point to kind of keep us in the battle for second place. And we came out the blocks there really quickly, got 2 goals and really dominated our force on that game. And we were very unfortunately that the equaliser for Ilminster came from a penalty late on, but we never gave up and carried on fighting. So I think, yeah, those 2 games for me showed our spirit, and probably when I look back on the season were the 2 games that solidified our second place finish. But if you go across the whole year, our home form was brilliant last year. And that comes in thanks to a lot of the supporters, I think, that come here. I mean, it can be quite nerve-wracking, I think, to play at Twerton. And our first games here, I think our players did struggle with that. But when they realised that the crowd were there to support them and sort of really back them up, it sort of became a bit easier for them. And over the sort of course of the season, this place became a fortress, even with league leaders that were unbeaten coming down here and struggling to walk away with any points. And we beat them as well early on in the year. I think our highest attendance was 215, which there's teams in several leagues above us that would be very grateful for an attendance like that. So yeah, I think the crowd support was massive for us this year and really did help make Twerton Park a hard place to come.
And I suppose that only helps you when you're going into conversations across the board, how much the support has been there and how much people are really willing to get behind this team.
Oh, definitely. I think I wasn't expecting the support that had come out, but as the season grew on, we were getting more and more people coming down, more people messaging, asking about what it's like and, you know, when they could come. So yeah, it really did sort of rile up support. And yeah, I think for our players, they really appreciated it. And it was also quite nice to see a lot of the young girls coming along and you sort of almost having a bit of a role model in some of our players, and our players enjoyed that as well. So hopefully next season that continues, and we look forward to seeing the crowd here again next year.
It's always seemed to be a really positive environment. Is that something that you push for when you're building a team?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me is professionalism. I don't really care what level you're at. If you want to achieve something, you need to come with that level of professionalism, and that's the sort of standard we set early on. And it just happened to come with that kind of positive push and an outlook, and that all has the positive effects on the rest of the team. And the professionalism has shown this year, especially when we've gone potentially other places and we've not seen it as much, but our team have still gone with that same level of professionalism and played the same way, and it's been a brilliant start for them.
I'm sure it helps for you as well to come to this club, and it's been a really exciting moment for the women's team to launch. How nice has it been for you to be able to align the women's team into what is already built here?
Yeah, I mean, with the Bath City way that we spoke about a lot in sort of previous interviews, it's all about our attitude and our structure. So aligning that with the men's team was crucial when we came in and made sure we were following that kind of guideline. We've brought our own stuff to the table as well, as far as the way we play isn't always the same as the men's team does. But I think that gives us a little bit of, you know, individuality and a little bit of uniqueness in that sense. But overall, off the pitch is all the same. We train the same way, we work hard, we play at the same ground. And yeah, it's been nice to align with the men, but also still have our sort of what makes us special as well.
And I suppose as well, now you've had that first year, you can now start to really plan and look ahead to the years that come for the women's team. What are your ambitions personally? My
personal ambitions, how high are the stars kind of thing. For me, we want to push the club as far as we can. I don't see why we should limit ourselves to saying, let's get here and that's it. I think we've set little goals. Our first one is to try and get promoted. Hopefully we've done that first attempt. We won't find out for a little while, but other than that, the next phase is, can we do the next one? Can we do the next one again and just keep pushing? That's my personal goals. And I think what's special about this team is the fact that a lot of the other players buy into that as well. I think it's just how high we can go with the team really, and to ensure there's a pathway for young female footballers in the area to come and play. And that's why we're setting up the development team this year, and why we've got plans to potentially expand the sort of like the youth sort of setup and everything. But one step at a time. How exciting is that for you to see that continued investment and that continued development? Obviously, having a developmental team come in, is that sort of a good way for you to really bolster your squad and bring new characters in? Yeah, I think one thing I've always said is that the core of any great team is sort of like a youth setup coming through and having the sort of being self-sustainable really. And we've spoke about that from the very start of the season. I think by the end of the season, we had a game where the average age of our squad was something like 21. And we had 7 players starting that were under the age of 20. So although that's not ideally what you'd want for your first team, maybe 22, 23 as an average age is better, but it shows what our sort of ambition is to get these young players in. And to have that continued support and investment in what is going to be that pathway for these young players is massive. Matt, you're a man that's coached across both men's and women's team. What are sort of the differences that you notice across both of those? And as well, even in the year that you've been here and over the last 10 years plus, how much have you seen the women's game develop? I think for me, it's the opportunities that the male players had maybe compared to the female players. You can tell that with the male players that they've had loads of opportunities at a young age to develop and to understand the game. And you can see that with the older generation of the men's players really understanding the game. Whereas with the women's game, I think a lot of them didn't maybe get the opportunities as young as maybe some of the men did. So although technically they're brilliant players and the technical side they've really learned, they were never really given the fair opportunity of learning the tactical side as well. And that's easy to see with maybe some of our younger players that have come in, where you talk to them about tactics and they get it straight away and they're off and they're doing it, whereas some of the older players and more experienced ones are learning it for the first time this year. I think fair play to them. They've come along and took it on brilliantly, but that's the biggest thing for me. And it's quite exciting to see that hopefully the opportunities are going to keep pushing forward for the women's game. But yeah, like I said, it's obvious to see that the opportunities have come more in recent years rather than in the latter years.
And that's reflected throughout the club as well, the hard work of the foundation and obviously the very strong youth setup that's here as well. It is a club that's really trying to help the development of the women's game, isn't it? Yeah,
our foundation, I know they do the Wildcats for the young girls, which I think is perfect for any young girl that's not sure on the game but wants to just build a bit of confidence before joining a team. I think Wildcats is perfect to start off with for them. And also the foundation does the turn up and play for the women as well. So they're sort of covering all bases of women of all ages from sort of 6 up until 60. We've got all sort of areas covered. And yeah, it's great to see that they are getting those opportunities to play. And hopefully that'll be something that in the future we don't even talk about because actually it's equal across all platforms.
You spoke a little bit there about the spectrum of ages that come across the club and obviously in your own team as well. How important have the experienced players been in really helping the younger players that are coming through?
Oh, they've been brilliant. The role models for the younger players, we've got players like Ali, Tara, Annie. We've got a lot of more experienced players that are there. And it's been quite nice to see that instead of being a divide between ages, they've almost become like mum figures in some ways to the younger players. I think Tara gets called Nana by a few of the players because she's getting to an age she's getting cramp a few times in a game, which they have a bit of a laugh and a joke about. But no, I think they've been real role models. I was only saying earlier on to somebody that Tara being our captain and Ali being vice captain this year, the experience they've had and probably the fact they've had to fight for their place to actually have the opportunity to play is a real sort of inspiration for some of the young players that have maybe been given more opportunities than they were given. So yeah, I think they are role models for the game and the young players love them and adore them. And I think they have sort of took the best from them and hopefully they run with that in the future as they develop.
You and your assistant are both UEFA B qualified. The professionalism of the club, there's something that you really touched upon. How big is that of a sell to players that are coming through?
I think it's massive. What we're offering here is very professional in the sense that we have a goalkeeper coach. This pre-season, we're looking at developing strength and conditioning in the players a little bit more. We've got physio support. Even down to something as small as on match days, we have a linesman rather than the substitutes running the line, which is very common at the level we played at last year. We've got linesmen that are coming in, proper linesmen and doing the job. So yeah, I think from top to bottom, we are putting our best foot forward. And yeah, I think that's all we can offer. And then, at the end of the day, that's how the club's going to thrive and how it's going to push forward.
Some of the obstacles that naturally come in the way, being at this level, you speak about the professionalism, but you've also really maintained and created a really positive atmosphere here. How important is it that your players are together and really combine to create something special?
Yeah, I mean, although we push forward a lot about the professionalism of the club, it doesn't come at the cost of enjoying football. They all have to go hand in hand. If you're enjoying your football, and that's going to give you that motivation to keep pushing forward. So without the enjoyment, you don't have the professionalism. But at the same time, it's finding the happy balance because you don't want to go out and be, not sort of do your best in the games, if that makes sense. So yeah, no, I think having the nice balance of we like to put everything out professionally for the players, but at the same time, we want to make sure every player leaves the pitch with a smile on their face on a match day.
With it being your sort of first summer, I suppose, to really plan around the team, with some players being set in place, some players naturally moving on, how are you looking at recruitment moving forward? How are you looking at sort of moulding the team even further in your own image?
We've already had a conversation with a few players. We've got our recruitment day coming up as well, which is a great opportunity for anyone to come along and showcase themselves. And the big thing for me is that they need to want it as well. If they want it and we want it, then that's going to work. But if we're having to force players to come along, then it's not going to work for anybody. No one's going to be happy. So I think for me, if you've got the ambition and the professionalism and you really have the desire and the heart for it, then we're going to get along fine. But the style of play, I think, is a big one for me, comes naturally as players learn and develop and they practice along with their teammates.
I suppose the last question would be around that recruitment day and around your own personal recruitment ambitions, of course, throughout the summer. What is the main selling point, do you believe, for this football club when you're speaking to other players that you want to bring in?
The main selling point for me is the professionalism of the club. Considering the level we're playing at, we're offering the women to play on the same pitch as the men, which a lot of clubs, believe it or not, still don't offer that opportunity. We do things like, we did a lot of the gifts and stuff that come through the season. We did the social media stuff that a lot of clubs are not doing, and they're not investing in the women's game in that sort of sense, where we are, and we're not being told that there is a limit. We are being told, go on, off you go. Let's really push this and drive this forward. And with the sponsors behind us and the club again really sort of pushing it forward, I don't see why there's any reason we should stop driving forward. So I think that's the big selling point for me, is come jump on the train and get on the ride.
Well, congratulations on a strong debut year, and we look forward to seeing you in the new season.
Thank you very much.